UBI stands for Universal Basic Income, and it seems to be discussed pretty much everywhere. You can't escape it if you turn on any media outlet. But what is it? How is it controversial? And is this going to be our salvation or our ultimate downfall? Hi, my name's Tyus. I make videos about freedom. If that's something that's important to you, if you want to escape the rat race and live the freest life possible, hit the subscribe button. Now, some people are saying that this UBI, Universal Basic Income, is going to be setting us free, and other people think it's going to destroy our freedom. We're going to investigate that into a lot more detail in this video. We're going to talk about what UBI is, what the problems are with it, what it's supposed to achieve, where the money in that income is going to actually be coming from, and if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you my little secret belief on what the future of UBI really will look like. Okay, so what is UBI? The $1 million sentence that's supposed to explain it all is that UBI is a theoretical government public program for a periodic payment delivery to all citizens of a given population without a means test or work requirement. That didn't make any sense, did it? Basically what it is it's free money for every single person as long as it meets 5 basic characteristics. Those characteristics are it's universal, it's unconditional, it's in cash, it's individual, and it's periodic or reoccurring. Let me go over each one of those 5 so they make sense. The first one was that it is universal. This basically means that it's non-discriminatory. They can't decide that one group is going to get it and another group is not going to have access to this money. There was recently a farm bill, stimulus bill for farmers passed that only addressed minority-owned farms. So that basically, if you were a white farmer, you weren't eligible for this bill. Well, Universal Basic Income will not discriminate based off of anything like that. It won't discriminate on your age or your skin color or anything like that, your gender, sexual preference, or anything else. The second factor is that it is unconditional. There are no requirements. So there's 2 areas where there could be requirements. One is there could be conditions that you have to meet in order to receive it. This could be considered like welfare, where if you are above a certain line of income, you wouldn't qualify for the payments. Well, there is none of that with UBI. There's also no conditions on how you have to spend it. So it's not like a particular grant where they say, hey, you've got to spend it on specific things. You can use this money for anything you want. The next characteristic of Universal Basic Income is that it comes to you in cash, which means you can use it for anything you want and you can convert it to anything you want. If they give you this income and you want to go out and buy gold with it, knock yourself out. If you want to go out and buy Xboxes with it, that's fine too. It's yours, it's cash. So you can do with it as you please. It's also individualistic. This is an important characteristic because this money is not going toward a group. A lot of payments that have gone to stimulus have gone to a specific group or has gone to, let's say, on a household basis. But this wouldn't be going toward just the household. This goes to every single individual of that household. Every single person in the population would be getting this money. And the last characteristic of Universal Basic Income is that it's periodic. Basically meaning that you would get this money on a reoccurring basis, whether that would be every week, maybe every month, it could be quarterly, it could be yearly, but it keeps going indefinitely. Now, the idea of Universal Basic Income has been around for literally hundreds and hundreds of years, but it hasn't really been enacted before. And people might ask, well, why? Why would we make a change right now? If things have been getting better for hundreds of years, why should we enact this massive financial change, this difference in economics? And there's a couple of different reasons why. One is that the wealth gap seems to be increasing. What the wealth gap is that the rich and the poor, the difference between those 2 points keeps getting bigger. The wealthy are getting wealthier, and the poor, well, they're not getting poorer. However, they're not getting wealthy at the same rate that the rich are getting wealthy. And so the gap between the super rich and everybody else is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. This is probably due mostly to automation. We've become really, really good at automating different things, whether it's services through software or whether it's fabrication through robotics. We're finding ways of doing things without needing humans to do it. And because of that, we don't need to hire so many employees, which definitely doesn't help create jobs, but we're also creating things for cheaper than ever before, which makes the goods easier for everybody to get, but it also makes the rich people really, really rich. It also leads to the second reason that people want Universal Basic Income, and that is that jobs are going away. We're seeing less and less jobs. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened. Back when everybody who's riding on horseback and using horse-drawn carriages, people freaked out when automobiles came out and they were all the rage, but people were like, well, what about this whole industry, this whole ecosystem around horses? We've got people that have to raise horses and breed horses and feed them and they shoe them, and all of these people, all of these jobs were going to be eliminated because automobiles were taking over. What had to happen was ultimately people had to change because the world was changing. And we might be in a similar situation right now with the world changing to new technology. Now, there are two basic promises on what universal basic income is supposed to achieve. One is that it's going to raise the poverty floor, and the second is that it's going to stimulate the economy. Raising the poverty floor would essentially mean if somebody made $25,000 a year and they got a check every month for $1,000, rather than making $25,000 a year, now they're going to be making $37,000 a year. So it sounds great, right? They're making more money, but keep in mind that everybody is making more money. Everybody's making that same amount of money. So they're not actually bringing people out of poverty. They're just raising the level of where poverty is. You'd still be broke. You'd just be broke with more money, but the price of goods would go up in correlation to how much money you make. So ultimately, you're still at the same level of brokenness. Brokenness? Is that even a word? I don't think brokenness is a word. The second thing that universal basic income is supposed to achieve is to stimulate the economy. This comes from the idea from Keynesian economics that spending is what stimulates the economy. However, there is a secondary school of economics called the Austrian School of Economics, and they disagree with this idea. They think that it's not spending that makes the economy move forward, but it's actually creation. It's not the spending side, it's the building side. And they use this analogy. Imagine we went around and we broke all the windows in the country. People would now need to spend money in order to replace those windows, but that's not going to help the economy because what we did was we actually caused damage. What would help the economy is if we became the best manufacturer of windows in the world. If we could do that, people would buy windows from us regardless, and we wouldn't have had to destroy all that property to stimulate spending. They basically are arguing that it's becoming a great creator, becoming a great manufacturer, which the United States used to be an incredible manufacturer, and unfortunately that has now moved mostly to China and India. It's something that we need to figure out how to do to get back on our feet. So where would the money come from for universal basic income? If we were to pay every single person $1,000 per month, where would we get that money? Because that's a lot of money we're talking about. There's three possible solutions. One is that we could print it, we could also tax everybody, or the third option is we could redistribute the money. So printing, what would that look like? We would turn on the printing press at the Federal Reserve Bank, and we just print out a ton of money. And unfortunately, what this would do is it would cause inflation. The dollar would become less and less valuable the more and more dollars are in existence. The more that are in circulation, the less value each dollar bill has. Think of it like a pizza. If you cut the slices up smaller and smaller and smaller, you still have one pizza. You don't have any more value, but each slice is smaller and worth less. So you have a lot less buying power if this happens, and ultimately inflation is a hidden tax. It's a bad way to go. So the next option is a very direct tax. We would tax everybody directly and say, hey, we're going to need to tax everybody so that we can give every single person $1,000 per month. Now, this seems to have a very obvious flaw in the fact that if you're taking $1,000 from everybody only to give $1,000 to everybody, well, believe it or not, that's not even a break even, because you have to pay somebody to manage both taking the taxation and in giving the taxation back. So there's going to be an additional cost there that makes us have less money in the process. The third option is to not tax everybody, but redistribute that wealth. That means you tax a lot on the rich. Here's the problem with taxing a lot on the rich. If you go to, let's say, Warren Buffett or Elon Musk or some super rich guy and you say, hey, we're going to be taking a tremendous amount of your wealth in order to give it to other people. One, they actually don't have enough money. If you take all the billionaires on the planet, they wouldn't have enough money to fund this. But two, the second big problem is they do have the resources to relocate themselves. So they'd probably just say, you know what? I'm not going to play your game. I'm going to leave this country because this country has a bad policy where you're trying to take advantage of me. We've seen this. Elon Musk left California and moved to Texas because it had better policies for him. The rich will leave. There's not really a great solution on where this money could come from. There have been some very direct promises that we will get to universal basic income. Andrew Yang promised that if he was elected president, he was going to give every single person in the United States $1,000 a month. This brought up the question, is this a direct political bribe? Is he saying, I will buy your vote for essentially $12,000 a year? Is that legal? Can you do that? In the 1970s, the United States ran several tests around universal basic income to see what the results would be. And I feel like I could have told them what the results would have been, but I wasn't alive yet. It was pretty simple and pretty obvious. People worked less. Of course they worked less. They were getting paid to do nothing, so of course they're going to produce less labor. This is definitely one of the consequences of universal basic income, especially if you were to take it directly from the super rich. It would incentivize those with money to work less and the people with a lot of money to leave the country. This is not necessarily a great financial move. The question has been asked, are the stimulus checks that we have seen from this COVID disaster, are those stimulus checks a form of universal basic income? And like I said, there are several conditions that would make something universal basic income. It's unconditional, it's cash, it's individual, it's periodic, and it's universal. Well, unconditional, yes. Everybody got those checks provided they were within a certain income range, so there were no conditions on what they did with it. It was in the form of cash or directly deposited into people's accounts. Some people got little credit cards. Was it individual? Yes, it wasn't given to people as a household, it was given to each person individually, but it wasn't periodic. It wasn't done reoccurringly indefinitely. It was something that just happened as a one-off situation. It also wasn't universal. It was given specifically to people that made below a certain amount of money. The people that were rich did not get it, and therefore it doesn't qualify as being universal basic income. If universal basic income could solve all of our problems, the question should be asked, why should it be $1,000 a month? Why not $5,000 a month? Why not $10,000 or $1 million or $1 billion a month? And that seems pretty obvious, right? You'd say, well, $1 billion a month, we couldn't afford $1 billion a month. Plus, the price of goods would have to skyrocket if it was $1 billion a month. Well, every reason that you might come up with for why it would be a bad idea to give every single person $1 billion a month for free is the same reason why it's a bad idea to give everybody $1,000 a month for free or any amount of money per month for free. It's bad economics. But there is a possible solution to this that would make universal basic income work. And it doesn't even involve the public sector. It doesn't require any government intervention. It doesn't require any additional taxation. We don't actually have to worry about where that money comes from if the money comes from somebody voluntarily. What could I possibly be talking about? Well, companies could be providing universal basic income to their customers as a possible solution. You might have seen this in other ways that you might have not even identified. Like, for example, most email addresses are given away for free. Now, they're not really given away for free, but if you have a Gmail account, the way you get that is Google, in exchange for giving you the Gmail account, well, they also look at the data. They do the same thing for search information. When you use a Google search, they're gathering information about what you're looking for, and that helps them understand the market and produce advertising for you. That's also how social media works. When you use social media apps, they're collecting data and they're delivering ads. So you get something for free, but ultimately there is a price attached for it. I could see a potential future where perhaps you are given a phone for completely free, like no money at all to get a free cell phone, because that's going to be the easiest way for people to sell products and applications and advertise to you on. It wouldn't surprise me if potentially manufacturing and harvesting and automation and robotics gets to a point where it's so cheap to produce food that they might be able to give away the food for basically nothing. And then that same company could say, you know what, we're feeding everybody for free because we can. However, if you want the good stuff, if you want our premier line of food, then please come to us because we're the genuine loving company that has fed the world and stopped starvation. There is a way that we could use the amazing advances in technology to actually provide people with free goods. Maybe that's the future for us. Look, I hope you find these videos entertaining, enjoyable, educational, and if you do, please share them with somebody. Also, hit the subscribe button if you have not done so already, and I hope to see you on the next video. Bye-bye.